Now I'm going to show you how I make these gorgeous stars, which I'm going to use to decorate my Christmas tree this year. And I'm going to use something called hexiform, and it comes from a company called Ashmead Designs, and you can buy it in sheet form or already cut out. And I'm using the diamonds which have already been cut out because it makes life a lot simpler and very much quicker too. Now to make these stars, you need to cover 12 diamond shapes. So you've got 6 for each side. I'm using some lovely Liberty Tana Lawn fabric here, a Christmas design, and I get most of mine in scrap packets, so it's a lot cheaper. And you will notice that hexiform has a very soft felt-like on one side, and on the other it's very, very smooth. And you need to place the felt side down onto the fabric, onto the back of the fabric. And to do that, I like to just secure the shape in place with a little dabbing glue, which just helps to keep it in place while you're cutting the shape out. And you need to leave about 1/4 of an inch around your shape. And then the final edge, like so. You then need to cover your diamonds like so, and this is called basting. Many people prefer to tack the fabric into place, but I'm actually going to use glue. I'm really happy to use glue, and it's a fabric glue in a pen from a company called Soline, especially to use on fabric and for quilters. So you need to fit the fabric down as close and very snugly to the edges as you possibly can. And you also need to take each piece in the same direction going round. And I'm sure you'll take a lot longer than I do. Now I've roughly given it 1/4 of an inch, but because I use scraps, sometimes I'm trying to squeeze enough diamonds out of a certain design of fabric, and I just take it to be a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch, but 1/4 of an inch is ideal. We now need to join some diamonds together to make half a star. So we join 3 together. I've already threaded up some cotton with a knot in the end. And we place 2 diamonds together, right sides together. And I like to use these little clips, which you can get in all quilting shops, or you can even find them online on Amazon. But I like to try and get my things from a local quilting shop to support a local business. And we start in the middle of the diamond at the 2 points, like so. And make sure you've got the knotted end as the longer piece. And I like to stitch them together just like so. And then one more in that space. And through the loop, just to create a secure knot to keep it in place. And we need to work our way along the side of our 2 diamonds which have been put together. Now, if you watch my video with Sunny from Serendipity, she recommended we go about 1 millimetre apart from the stitches. I tend to make my stitches a little bit close together. I have tried different stitches wider apart, and if you go too wide, you find that when you stuff your star, it will gape. So you don't want to go too wide. So 1 millimetre apart is probably just about perfect. I do need to put my glasses on. That's better. And we go all the way along the edge. Now, if you haven't made these before and you're going to worry about how your stitches look, please don't, because actually you might think, oh, that doesn't look as good as I want it to, or it's not perfect. Well, it really doesn't matter if it's not perfect, because when you finish your star and you've put it all together, it will look so much better than you think it will. And of course, the more you make, the better you will get. And so it will improve in time, but you really need to finish what you're making, because it will give you your confidence a boost when you see how lovely it will look. And to be honest, nobody's going to get a magnifying glass out to have a look, or at least I hope they're not going to. They're just going to admire how absolutely lovely your stars look hanging on your Christmas tree, or from your mantelpiece, or wherever you choose to put them. So don't stress about it being perfect, because I can assure you some of my stars, the stitching really isn't brilliant at all. And then we get to the end, and then I like to go through the loop to secure a knot, and then back stitch a little bit. Just to secure the stitching. And then you end up with 2 diamonds together. You then need to add another diamond to make your half a star. And you do that again by putting together on the right side and then clipping again. Oh, I can't find where I've put my clip, but you use the little clip, there we go, to secure together, to hold, oh, there it is, to hold your diamond together while you're stitching. And that's really, really helpful. So you then stitch the 3rd diamond to make your half of a star. And then we go on to the next stage. And so now we have got 2 halves of a star, and we need to stitch these together to make a whole half of a star that we're going to make. So we put our 2 right sides together. And there are 2 ways of doing this. You can either start from one end and work your way to the other end. And you need to make sure you've got the middle almost exactly together. And hold it together with a clip. Or you can actually start from the middle and work one way, turn it round, start from the middle and work the other way. So you need to make make sure they're very close together at the centre. Hold the little flaps back. Put my glasses on again. And we start in the middle. Like so. I like to go over that twice and then into the loop to create a knot to secure it. And then we work all the way along to the end. About a millimetre apart. I'll take that off now. Until we get to the end. And of course, making these stars does take quite a bit of time, but to be honest, they will last for years and you can pass them down generation to generation. And I hope that my niece and nephew will have these to decorate their Christmas tree in years to come. And having something handmade is so much nicer than just buying things, which is probably quite often made with plastic and goodness knows what else. And we get to the end, and again, I quite like to secure it by creating a little knot by going through the loop like so. There we are. And then we turn it and we start in the middle again and work our way to the other end. If you find it's one is slightly longer than the other, that's fine. Just use a clip to make sure they're secure one end, and you can just sort of manipulate it in and you won't know the difference when you've sewn it together. You will then end up with two star shapes like this. And so that will take us to the next stage. And now we get to the exciting bit, because this is where our stars really start to take shape, and you can see how they begin to see how they're going to look at the end. Now, I'm going to show you how to deal with these ears here, because they're going to be quite fiddly to sew in as we go round. So what we do is we just snip the ear off a little bit, not too close to the tip, or we could end up with a hole, but just take the excess off, just to make things a little bit easier. Like so, we make our way round. And we carry on and do this to both halves of the star. So we'll end up with two halves like this. So now we're ready to start the sewing. Now I've got my needle ready with a knot in the end, and I like to start by running the needle on the back like so, just to secure it, and so the knot is on the inside of the star and can't be seen. And we're going to start, as you can see here, we leave a gap so that we can stuff our star afterwards. So we're going to start probably just over a third of the way down, or just under a half of the way up, whichever way you want to look at it. And we start stitching. And for that tiny bit extra security, I quite like to make a knot by making a loop. There we go. Move so you can see a bit better. And then we start stitching the two sides together. And as we get closer to the top of that point, I quite like to make my stitches closer together because it just secures that point, makes that point a little bit stronger. And you can see how gluing, just using a tiny bit of glue to glue the rest of the ears in, really does help make it easier to stitch around. Couple of stitches in the top there, and then we come back down the other side, and sometimes the other side is a little bit more difficult to stitch because you've got more of the excess fabric from the inside. So I like to start with, I go from one side like so, and then the other side. And it is fiddly. And then once you've got past that little fiddly tip, you can carry on just stitching the two edges together. And then as we get closer to the dip here, the inverted point or dip, whatever you want to call it, valley, that would be a good name, to the valley, you need to make your stitches that little bit closer together again for the strength. It's very easy to end up with a bit of a hole there, which we don't want. I mean, we can stitch it up obviously, but it's nice to get it firmly stitched the first time. It's quite nice to give an extra few stitches just to make sure it is secure. And then we carry on up the other side to the next point, and we do the same as we did before. If you find you've got one point a little bit longer than the other, that's fine. You just need to manipulate it a little bit and it will all fit together beautifully. It's more important to make sure that the points come together perfectly. And then you can just manipulate those sides in. Anyway, we go on until you've made your way all the way around, and you end up with something like this, with a gap, which is where you put the stuffing in. And to stuff your star, to start with, you don't want to use huge great pieces, because they're quite difficult. When they're very large, they're really quite difficult to get up to the points. And I have noticed on some of my stars, I've used too much stuffing to start and my points start to bend over a little bit. So you just start with small amounts, and I'm using a wooden skewer here. If you look at the video with Sunny, where she gives us some tips on how to improve on skills of making these stars, she actually uses a chopstick from Wagamama. I've never been to Wagamama, so I think I'm going to have to try that out one day. But you keep going around until you get those tips well filled. And then you can start to use larger pieces of stuffing to finish the rest of the star. And here's one. This is how it will look when it's finished. But you will, of course, end up with a star with a gap. So all you need to do is to stuff it in and then take your needle and thread and just sew it up as you did when you were going around the rest of the star. So here we have our lovely little puffy star, well filled, looking gorgeous. All we have to do is to add some beads in the middle. Because I think you'll probably agree that by adding a bead in the middle, it really does improve the look. It looks so much more finished. And all I do is I get some thread and I pass it from one side of the star to the other. And I do that once more just to secure it. And then, I might do it one more time actually. And then that's it. We just take the chosen bead we're going to use, and I think that looks quite nice. on this particular star. And you might notice you can see the stitches on this star, and I think really I should have chosen the lighter colour that I'm using here. It would have looked a lot nicer. So when you make your stars, it's quite important to take into account the thread that you choose. You've got it on one side. We pull that down like so, just get it on its side so it's secure. Ooh. And then you take the bead on the other side and you do exactly the same. And we go through. And I personally would probably go round, I would probably go round the bead quite a few times. A bit fiddly trying to find the right place to come up. There we go. And then I go again through the bead. Down through the centre. Through the bead on the other side again. And I'll probably do that 4 times just to make sure it's really, really secure. And when I've done that 4 times, I just go round and round like so. And I'll take it through to the other end again. And I go round the stitching again, just to really secure it. I'll probably go through like so. And then all I do is take it through to the other side yet again. I'm not going to worry where it comes out this time too much, because all I'm then going to do is to snip off the thread, which will then disappear into the star, and this is what you're left with. So I hope you enjoyed my tutorial, and even more so, I hope you enjoy making these beautiful stars for your Christmas tree. There we go. One last look. Well, I'm back again because I missed a little bit out in my tutorial. After I had cut the ears off the star, I forgot to tell you and show you how I deal with these little bits that are left over. And I did mention using glue when I was stitching up the sides of the star, and that is I put a tiny bit of glue at the top and I just glue those little bits in. All the way round. Just to make it easier for you. As you can see, that looks neater already when we come round to stitching, because those little bits, if they can get in the way a little bit, and it's difficult to push them into place when you're stitching. So that tiny little bit of glue just helps. I'm sorry I missed that little bit out for you.